asking your couples not to do the charting, take note to follow the first step. Ask the couple to complete the Billings ovulation form. This form includes the important details about your client so that you will be able to guide them correctly. Okay? If you don't have the copy of the Billings ovulation method form, please try to send me a message. During the initial instruction, these are the areas that the accredited Billings ovulation method teacher must teach. No? First one, the 4 phases of the cycle, the 4 rules correctly, and instruct the couple on how to observe the mucus and to chart accurately. So take note to record the most fertile observation in the entire day. What is the meaning of that? For example, if you are dry in the morning, so don't record it yet. If you will have mucus secretion at 1 p.m., so at night before going to bed, you will record the most fertile. That is the presence of the mucus that the woman experienced at 1 p.m. No? So that will be the meaning of that particular note. Take note to record the most fertile observation in the entire day. Now, this is very important and all of you are already familiar with this one. In the first charting, couples are requested to abstain from genital contact for 2 weeks after the initial instruction. And the couple must go back to the clinic after 2 weeks of charting. So this one is very common to first world countries, no? Wherein couples are really given instruction during the first meeting, and they will be instructed not to have any genital contact for 2 weeks until the couple, go back again to the clinic after 2 weeks. But in our scenario, it will be different. No, we accompany the couples day by day. So no need for the couples to wait for 2 weeks. No, we need to accompany them day by day. That is why we can immediately, give advice to the couples in a day-to-day basis. During the initial instruction, the Billings ovulation method will be would be using these following symbols, no? So you are very familiar with this one. The bleeding, it can be color red or a shaded circle. The spotting, take note of the 3 dots. If it is dry, color green or a vertical line. A baby stamp is used in the first world country, but in our case, we can use the circle for the symbol for the presence of the mucus secretion. If the mucus will end with a peak day, meaning the last day of the slippery sensation, that is the peak, mark it with an X. You will only discover that it is a peak day if the following day, no longer wet. That is why it is known to be the last day of the slippery sensation, peak day. And then the symbol for intercourse would be a capital letter I. So these are the symbols that we need to teach the couples. Take note, we don't use the color yellow or the equal sign during the initial instruction. So how to observe the mucus? Take note. As the woman walks about, she can tell when menstruation begins. She feels wet at the vulva. When she looks, she sees blood. In the same natural way, she senses the presence of mucus when it arrives at the vulva and notices how it changes in both the sensation and appearance during the different phases of her cycle. So meaning, kung paano ino-observe ng isang babae ang menstrual bleeding, ganoon din niya nararanasan ang mucus secretion. Tandaan natin, no? It is the vulva that will That will sense the presence of the mucus. No touching. Do not use the fingers to identify the sensation of the mucus. Ang makaka-identify ng sensation of the mucus would be the vulva. The vulva is very sensitive to To the sensation, especially if there will be a discharge like the mucus. No? So sperm live in the mucus. The mucus tells the woman when she can conceive and when she cannot conceive. No? So the mucus is an indicator of fertility, and at the same time, it is the one that will give life to the sperm upon entry into the cervix. So our review before the upskilling course would be regarding what we call this BIP of unchanging pattern of discharge. This is a sample chart of a mother, 23 years old, no history of contraceptives. The goal would be postponing pregnancy. So the Billings ovulation method teacher in the Philippines accompanies the couple day by day, which I already mentioned earlier. So we don't allow them to come back after a week or after 2 weeks, but we try to accompany them day by day. No? So let's begin. So this is an example of a cervix wherein the cervix is completely closed by the mucus plug. If the cervix is closed by the mucus plug, the sensation at the vulva would be dry. But there are occasions wherein the woman will be able to sense the presence of the mucus, but the sensation is dry during the days of the BIP. We call it the basic infertile pattern, unchanging pattern of discharge. The discharge is the same day after day. No? The discharge remains same day after day, cycle after cycle. And where is the origin of the discharge? Small fragments breaking off lower part of the plug result in the discharge. So now, during the initial charting, no, take note of the following symbols, which I already mentioned earlier. So let's begin. The first charting begins with a bleeding. April 15, wet bleeding. No? For example, this is a real menstruation, wet bleeding. If it is a menstruation, we follow EDR1. Avoid intercourse during the days of bleeding. April 15. Look at the symbol, shaded circle or a color red. So what would be our advice to the couple? Our advice would be no genital contact for this particular day because of the presence of menstruation. And menstruation continues until April 19, wet bleeding. So if it is a menstruation, no, let us assume that these are menstrual bleeding, then we can apply EDR1. Avoid intercourse during the days of menstruation. April 22, the sensation is dry according to your client and according to her message, no, via messenger. Okay, the message is like this: there is a cloudy mucus, but the sensation is dry. Why? For the moment, you suspend your complete answer. What advice you will tell the couple? Consider April 20 as the beginning of your fertile period. Use a circle. Use a circle as a symbol and write the description, dry, cloudy. Because we consider this as fertile, no genital contact for April 20. So the couple now, especially the mother, uses the symbol circle. That is the advice you will be telling the couple. And then April 21, the same sensation. It is dry, but there is a visible mucus, cloudy mucus. So again, what will be the advice? Please treat April 21 as what? As a fertile period. Use the symbol circle and the description dry, cloudy. For today, April 21, try to abstain from any genital contact. And then April 22 to 27, according to your client, no? Based on the text messages, the sensation is always dry, but there is a visible mucus, and the mucus is a cloudy mucus. Same advice. Abstain from any genital contact because of the presence of the mucus, no? use the symbol circle, and please take note of the description. It has a dry sensation and a cloudy mucus. Take note of that. You consider this as a fertile days, no? So April 22 hanggang April 27. On April 28, the mother, no, was very, very surprised. According to her, the mucus is still the same, cloudy mucus, but there is a change in the sensation of the mucus. The mucus is no longer dry, but it is sticky. Okay? What advice you will tell now the couple? You can now tell the couple, abstain from any genital contact today, April 28, because of the presence of the mucus. Use a symbol circle and please indicate the description. Sticky, cloudy. She might ask, how come the previous days are considered to be dry and how come today it's sticky? So for the moment, you suspend your judgment, no? The only advice that you can tell the couple as of the moment would be abstain from any genital contact because of the presence of the sticky, cloudy mucus. But of course, you have already an answer, but you will suspend the answer until you complete the entire cycle. No? So let's continue. So April, what? April 29. According to her, the mucus is still the same. It has a cloudy appearance, but the sensation is no longer sticky. It is now wet. What will be now your advice to the couple? Today, April 29, abstain from any genital contact. Okay? It might be a possible pregnancy if intercourse will take place and you are postponing pregnancy. And now, looking at April 29, you see that there is a developing pattern that is happening. But don't mention yet that to your client. Look at the developing pattern. April 28, sticky, cloudy. April 29, wet, cloudy. There is a change in the sensation. No? So let's continue now. Let's move now to April 30. On April 30, your client now, the message is totally different. She says, the mucus is very clear, no longer cloudy. And today, the sensation is very wet. What advice you can give now to the couple? You can say now, use the symbol circle and take note of the description, wet, clear. And take note, you are very fertile. Avoid any intercourse during this day, April 30. Abstain. Okay? Now, May 1, wet, clear, slippery mucus. That is the description given to you by your client. There is a sensation of wet. It is very clear, but with a very distinct another sensation, which is predominantly very, what do you call this? Very slippery in nature, no? By the vulva. Clear, slippery mucus. So what advice you will tell the couple now? The advice will be like this. Abstain from any genital contact. And if you will check your mucus pattern, since April 28, there is a developing pattern. Your mucus starts with a sticky clear on April 28. It begins to develop into a wet cloudy. It becomes wet clear. And now you are wet slippery. Now, what would be the advice? Again, if on May 2, you are no longer slippery, then place an X mark to your May 1 because your May 1 is the last day of the slippery mucus and it is called a peak day. Take note, you will only mark X to May 1 if May 2 is no longer slippery or if May 2 is no longer wet. So there are two scenarios. If May 2, if the mucus becomes cloudy, sticky, then May 1 is the last day of slippery sensation. Mark it with an X. If May 2 will be totally dry, nothing is seen, nothing is felt, then May 1 again is what is the peak day. So there is a two scenario, either May 2 no longer slippery, or May 2 you are no longer wet. Okay, so let's continue. What will happen to May 2? May 2, it is no longer slippery. It is no longer wet. The sensation is dry, but the mother or your client has a visible mucus. The description is cloudy mucus. What will be your advice? You can repeat what you mentioned yesterday, May 1. Place an X on May 1. That is your peak day, the possible day of your ovulation. May 2 is the beginning of your luteal phase. Take note, the beginning of the luteal phase. So starting May 2, you will place 1, the first day of the luteal. On the 4th day of the luteal, you can now have intercourse, applying the peak rule. Intercourse is available every day at any time. On the 4th day past the peak, that will be your advice to the couple. So May 2 is the beginning of the luteal phase, the first day after the peak day. Let's continue. May 3, the couple would abstain because that is your advice. You need to have 3 days of luteal. On the 4th day of the luteal phase, past the peak day, apply the peak rule every day at any time. But the question now would be, I would like to ask you, how come we are using a color yellow and an equal sign? Take note of what we studied last time. If the luteal phase is what? Dry, nothing is seen, nothing is felt, we use a vertical line or a color green. But if the luteal phase has a discharge, either mucus, no, or it might be seminal fluid, we always use an equal sign or a yellow color. I hope you still remember our previous lesson. Okay, let's continue. May 5 to May 14, dry, cloudy. So meaning, our client, the luteal phase is not color green. It is not a vertical line. It is not dry. Nothing is seen. Nothing is felt. It is always dry, but with a presence of mucus. That is why we are using the equal sign. Look at day what? Look at May 5. May 5, that is the beginning of the intercourse, applying the peak rule. So the couple now, after a long period of abstinence from April 15 until May 4, that's a long abstinence, no? May 5 is the only time that they can have intercourse, no? That is the 4th day past the peak day. And every time they will have an intercourse the following day, look at the chart, there is the presence of the seminal fluid, no? But the sensation is dry. And look at the symbols of the luteal phase. It is always equal or always yellow. But I want you to focus on May 14. There is no intercourse on May 14. That is why there is no symbol of an uppercase I. So May 14, the couple abstain, no? The couple, no? They're very tired. They did not have any intercourse on May 14. Let's check what will happen on May 15. May 15, wet, cloudy. As I mentioned to you last time, if the sensation of the luteal phase begins now, it will end now with the wet, no? Kapag nagiging wet na yung sensation towards the end of the luteal phase, it is an indication that the estrogen and progesterone are already moving down, no? Going back to the baseline. In that case, it is an indication that menstruation is about to commence. May 15, wet, cloudy, no intercourse also on May 15. But if the couple would like to have intercourse, there would be no problem. May 16, wet bleeding. And that wet bleeding is a menstruation. Why? Because that bleeding is preceded by a peak day and with a what? With a luteal phase of 11 to 16 days. That is the advice that you can give to the couple. May 16, that bleeding is a menstruation. Because of what reason? Because it is preceded by a peak and it has a luteal phase that has what? A length of 11 to 16 days. Okay? So if that is a menstruation, then you need to place it into a new chart. Wet bleeding, May 16, what would be the advice? EDR1, avoid intercourse during the days of bleeding. May 17 to 21, wet bleeding, EDR1, avoid intercourse during the days of what? Bleeding. Now, what will be your advice, no? Your advice now to the couple, no? Let's look at this one. May 22, dry, cloudy. Let me go back to this one. If you are dry after mens, and you will see again the dry, cloudy mucus, no? Do not anymore use the circle as a symbol, but instead use the equal sign. I repeat, this will be your advice. After menstruation, if your sensation is dry and you see again the mucus, a dry mucus, the one that you saw in the previous cycle, then do not use circle as a symbol. Use equal. But abstain from any intercourse during these days muna. Okay? Okay, let me continue. Sorry. May 22, dry, cloudy. Now, the couple. Now, I am dry, but the mucus is there. Again, cloudy. My teacher told me not anymore to use the circle. I will be using equal or color yellow, but no intercourse moment during the days of dry, cloudy after menstruation. That was the advice to me by my teacher. Okay? Then, May 23 to 29, the couple, especially the mother, uses an equal sign for all those sensations of dry with the presence of a cloudy mucus. Not anymore a circle. But the couple is following the advice. No intercourse first during the days of dry, cloudy in the second cycle. That is May, the beginning from May 22 all the way to May 29. No? Now, what happens on May 30? May 30, sticky, cloudy. Now, what will be the advice? The advice would be this. May 30, you have a similar type of mucus, cloudy mucus. But look at the sensation. It is no longer dry. It is sticky. Look at the difference between May 22 to May 29. May 22 to May 29, we call it unchanging pattern of discharge. What is the meaning of unchanging? Unchanging in Filipino, hindi nagbabago. Parati siyang tuyo, malabo. It is always dry, cloudy mucus. Always dry, cloudy mucus. If it is always the same, day after day, we call it unchanging pattern of discharge. Maybe that is your BIP, but we need to confirm that. We need 3 cycles to confirm if you are really what? A BIP of unchanging pattern of discharge. Look at your May 30. Your May 30 is no longer similar to May 22 to May 29. May 22 to May 29, unchanging, dry, cloudy. But May 30 is what? Sticky, cloudy. So meaning, May 30 is the beginning of your fertile day. Okay? The beginning of what? Of the opening of the cervix. May 30, your ovaries are active and you are producing a lot of estrogen. May 30 is the beginning of your fertile day. Let us check if your mucus will develop and will end with a slippery sensation. These are all the different advices we can give to our couple. No? May 31, wet cloudy. June 1, wet cloudy. June 2, wet clear. June 3, wet slippery. With this, you can now tell your couple, no? Look at the mucus starting from May 30. It is a developing pattern of mucus. Okay? May 30 until June 3. Now, we need to be very careful on June 4. If June 4 is no longer dry, June 3 is the peak day. Mark it with an X, the last day of the slippery sensation. If June 4 is no longer slippery, no longer wet, then definitely June 3 is the peak day. Let's check what is June 4. June 4, dry, cloudy. Okay? By the way, what is your advice from May 30 to June 4? The advice is EDR3, no? Avoid intercourse during the days of discharge leading to a peak, including the first 3 days of the luteal phase. So June 4 is the beginning of the luteal. June 3 has an X because it is a peak day. And then what advice we can give? Intercourse is resumed on the 4th day past the peak. And on that day, you can use the peak rule. Okay, June 5, June 6, dry, cloudy. The symbol is equal. Why? Because as I mentioned earlier, if the luteal phase has a discharge, either a mucus or a seminal fluid, the symbol would be equal or yellow color. We only use the green color for the luteal phase if the sensation is dry and you don't see any discharge. Nothing is seen, nothing is felt. So 1, 2, 3, June 4, June 5, June 6. What will be the advice? June 7, definitely the egg is already dead. No? June 7, the cervix is completely closed. Apply now the peak rule. Every day at any time. So there is an intercourse from June 7 all the way to June 16. The sensation is dry, cloudy. And then June 17, wet bleeding. Is this a menstruation? Our answer now would be yes. Why? Because this bleeding is preceded by a peak that happens on June 3, and it has a luteal phase with a length of 11 to 16 days. If this is a menstruation, our advice now would be make a new chart. Okay, this is June 17 all the way to what? All the way to July, no? So continue siya, no? I did not place any more the dates because the most important part here is just this in the third cycle. In the third cycle, after menstruation, the dry cloudy has a symbol of equal or a yellow color. But again, our advice would be no genital contact during the days of dry cloudy after mens. The BIP of unchanging pattern of discharge. Abstain because we need to confirm if you are really BIP of discharge. And confirmation is what? After 3 cycles, no? So no genital contact from day 7, look at that, day 7, all the way to day 14. That is the unchanging pattern of discharge, BIP. We have day 15, the beginning of the fertile period, sticky cloudy, not anymore dry cloudy. The symbol is circle. And look at day 19, wet, clear, slippery. 19 is the last day of the slippery sensation. Day 20 is the beginning of the luteal phase. The couple apply the peak rule on the 4th day past the peak. There are series of intercourse from 23 to 32. After the third cycle, what will be your advice for the fourth cycle? On the fourth cycle after mens, if dry cloudy will appear again, then we can now have a solid conclusion that you are a BIP of unchanging pattern of discharge. And what is your BIP? Dry cloudy. On the fourth cycle, you can now have intercourse applying EDR2, alternate evenings. And look what will happen on the fourth cycle. Look at the fourth cycle. On the fourth cycle, on the seventh day, nag-intercourse. Sorry, no? That is 9. Not A, no? 9 intercourse, 11 intercourse, 13 intercourse. This is how the teacher would accompany a couple, especially the mother. If the mother is a BIP of unchanging pattern of discharge, intercourse for the BIP of unchanging pattern of discharge can only take place on the fourth cycle. During the first, second, and third cycle, the couple is only applying the peak rule. The fourth day past the peak. Look at day 23, again, series of intercourse. Okay? So the BIP of unchanging pattern of discharge. Not all women, but there are some women might experience like this. A discharge wherein it remains same day after day, cycle after cycle. Take note of the origin. Small fragments breaking off lower part of the plug result in the discharge. So look at the slides. First charting, dry slight mucus. I want you to focus on that. Dry slight mucus. Look at the symbol, circle. Second charting, dry slight mucus. It is already equal. Third cycle, dry slight mucus equal. On the fourth cycle, apply the EDR2, no, for the BIP of unchanging pattern of discharge. Initially recorded with a circle, okay, and then record with a yellow stump or equal when pattern is seen to be unchanging in the second cycle. So this is how we apply and accompany, no, couples who are what? Who are this particular pattern, the BIP of unchanging pattern. I repeat, this is how we accompany couples if the mother has a pattern of unchanging pattern of discharge. 3 cycles are studied, which I've given you an example, in order to identify correctly the point of change of sensation or appearance of the mucus or both. What is the change of point of change? Dry, cloudy, dry, cloudy, dry, cloudy, dry, cloudy, dry, cloudy, sticky, cloudy, circle. That is the beginning. There is a point of change, no longer dry. It is already sticky. Okay? So basic infertile pattern of mucus remains the same day after day, cycle after cycle. There is no entry of sperm into the cervix, even though there is a discharge. The mucus plug completely closes the cervix for both BIP of unchanging pattern of dry and BIP of unchanging pattern of discharge. This unchanging pattern of infertility is common for many women. No? So that's it. I'll stop the sharing. Okay, naintindihan po natin ito, the BIP of unchanging pattern of discharge. Do you have any questions? No? So maliwanag na yun sa atin that there are 2 types of BIP, the BIP of dry and the BIP of unchanging pattern of discharge.